Hello, hello, everybody. We'll get started here in just 1 second. We'll give another minute for people to join in. Julie, I think you're going to need to pass over control to me. I cannot show screen on my end, so you're going to need to pass over control.
Kevin, I think it may have been myself with the presenting.
Okay, gotcha. We're going to get started here. There we go. You see my screen now?
Yep.
Perfect. Excellent, excellent. Well, looks like it's 2:30 Eastern time. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome, everybody. Before we get going, just a little bit of housekeeping. Know that this is going to be a little different type of presentation for us. Typically, we'd be doing sort of our standard informational webinars where we'd be talking about different things that are actually more over the edge oriented, but this time around we're going to start doing something a little bit different. We really want to just share our insights on fundraising, different things that we've experienced, different best practices that we've come across, and this is going to be an entire series of conversations that we're going to be having, pretty much monthly throughout the year. But as we're going through this conversation today, if you have any questions as we're going, please feel free to open up the questions box and type them in at any point, and our team will pick up on those and bring them up as they go along, and we'll do our best to answer as we can. So anyway, just thought I'd lead off with that. Maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Yep. Probably should do that.
Yeah, we just kind of jump right in there, get right to business. So we are we're calling this this broadcast the Fundraising Trio, and you've got myself, Kevin, you've got Kaleigh, and normally we'd have Kyra here, but she unfortunately had to take care of some business. So thankfully we got the help of one of our great teammates, Jamie, who's jumping in to fill that in. Kaleigh, go ahead and say hello to the good people.
Hello, everyone. Super excited to share a bit about what I've learned from talking to hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits all across North America from the last 3 years. I've heard just about everything from folks about their challenges with fundraising and, with working with specific board members that might be a little bit of a stick in the mud, trying to engage different demographics and all that great stuff. So I'm really looking forward to sharing more about the general fundraising trends that we have discovered over the years of connecting with many of nonprofit leaders.
Excellent. Wow, that was way better than I could have done. Gosh, did you?
Come on, Kev.
I didn't prepare anything like that. My goodness, you're trying to make me look bad here. Jamie, I know I'm kind of catching you off guard. You're filling in a pinch here. Why don't you introduce yourself and just say a little bit about yourself? You're relatively new to our team, but we're really happy to have you on board with us.
Yeah, my name is Jamie. Like Kevin said, I am new to the team. I've been here for a little bit less than 2 months so far. I'm the employee experience manager. So I'm just jumping in to help moderate since Kyra can't be here today. So if you guys have any questions, please do ask them, and I will make sure that Kevin and Kaleigh are flagged so they can answer all of your wonderful questions. But I'm looking forward to being here to learn a lot as well. So excited for everybody to be on board.
Don't let her kid you, people. She knows a lot already. She's a rock star. She's a rock
always
star.
Learn more.
There you go. There you go. That is true. There you go. I am Kevin Meyer. I am been with Over the Edge for about 7 years now. started off in the fundraising world, the nonprofit world, for about 20 years before I joined this team. I started off as a local worker bee and made my way up to be a regional director of a national organization. And but I'll tell you what, I've probably learned more in the last 7 years being with Over the Edge than I did in all of the combined training and AFP classes and certifications that I took prior to that. Just because in this position, you're talking with individuals from all across the country, various different nonprofits, different experiences, different demographics, and the dynamics that are there. It's really, really interesting, and I pride myself on trying to find ways to work with these nonprofits. But in the end, what you end up doing is you end up learning a lot more about the nonprofits, their missions, and really what they're facing. And so that's why we really settled on the trend raising trio, because really what we're picking up in these conversations are trends. And now, some of them may be anecdotal, but I would suggest, and I think we'll see it here on today's topic of the martyrdom effect, that while it may look anecdotal at first, when you get enough of that anecdotal information, it's really a trend. And it's really something that a lot of folks are facing. Now, it's not to say that every trend is universal. You know, trends are what most people experience. There's always going to be outliers, right? I mean, there's always going to be that one group that doesn't see it the same way, and that's okay. And good for you if you're able to get away from a negative trend or hop onto a positive trend. So anyhow, I want to just get into this and talk a little bit more about the martyrdom effect, and hopefully you'll find the information really interesting. This is something that is really across the board. So let's hop into it. Kaleigh, let me ask you this. Had you
Yeah.
ever heard of the martyrdom effect prior to me kind of bringing it to the team? I mean,
I
I
had
think
never heard of
we've
it.
talked about it in general terms that these are things that we're seeing, but we'd never heard of the martyrdom effect, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I know when you found that article from the Atlantic, you were like, Kaylee, you got to check this out. This is what we've been talking about. And I was like, wow, this just checks so many boxes. It makes sense. But yeah, no, it's nice to have a term associated with the act of what martyrdom effect is. And I know you're going to dive into it and share with everyone really what it is. And there's some great statistics that were done by a gentleman there in the report as well, that kind of breaks down, the martyrdom effect.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, what the martyrdom effect is, well, let me kind of go into some backstory on this. Everyone that we hear from talks about their runs and walks or some of their standard styles of event. They're seeing numbers go down, and so they're always trying to differentiate themselves. They're trying to find different styles of events or different ways to raise money, because what had been working before isn't working as much. And so there was a group that there was this author. Her name's Olga Kazan. She's with the Atlantic, and she published this article November the 24th of 2018. Uh, the actual name of the article is quite blunt. It's called "The Charity Walkathon is Dead." So it's very, very blunt. And really what she was trying to do is she wanted to explore this phenomenon that she had been seeing, and why are all of these nonprofits seeing their kind of standard same old style of event, why they're seeing the numbers go down. And Kaleigh, I know you speak with probably more nonprofits than I
Oh
do at
man.
this point. I mean, that's pretty much
Yeah,
what
I
you hear
mean,
constantly, right?
first thing I always ask a group is, first of all, if they've heard about the company that we work for, but, what they're doing for their current fundraising and, if they're looking to do anything different. And sometimes, they may not want to admit it, but, they're like, yeah, we need something different. And I let them know that it's been a trend that is happening all across the country. It's not just their organization that's seeing a decline in their funds raised. So I'm trying to, help them feel better about it. It's not just you, it is happening. And a lot of groups are looking for different ways to stand out in their community. So yeah, it is something that I hear all the time. And it's unfortunate, but there are so many things are easily replicated these days. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, in this article, what she does is she delves in and she speaks to lots of different industry leaders, and really wanted to get the whole picture, wanted to understand why this is. And a couple stats which blew my mind when I heard them. And now, mind you, this article was written late 2018, and so one of the first stats she mentions is that since 2016, the revenue at some of your standard, walk and run type events was down 6.7% across the board. So nearly a 7% decrease in just 2 years.
Just revenue.
Just revenue. Absolutely.
Okay.
Just revenue.
Yeah.
So 7% drop over those 2 years, which, that's pretty significant. I mean, for some of the clients that I know that we work with, Kaleigh, a 7% drop, that's a big deal. And that's just from one event. And I think, for a lot of our groups, that's their big event, right? That's the big thing for them for that year. And if you see a 7% decrease, how do you make that up? It's not an easy thing to do. And especially if that's what you've done, and that's all you've been doing, and it's been a mainstay for 20, 30 years. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the next statistic, which really blew my mind, was that overall participation, so people signing up to be a part of those events, was down 14% over 2 years. So from 2016 to late 2018, a 14% decrease in participants. Now, there's
that's the revenue so that's like double the amount of participation it's dropped, but from the revenue. Okay, crazy. All right, sorry. Yeah. Keep going, Kev. I'm just like, whoa.
I can hear you connecting the dots.
Oh yeah.
So the thing is here, I mean, there's a couple different ways to look at that. When I saw those percentages, I thought, well, there's a little bit of a silver lining here, that while there's a 14% decrease in number of participants, and there's only a 7% decrease in total revenue, what that tells you is that the nonprofits are getting a little bit better in how much they're able to pull from each individual. But here's the thing that's a little bit scary, is that what happens when there's a bit of an economic turndown and people don't have as much disposable income, and that 14%, and people aren't able to give more, they're actually giving less. How soon does it take before that 14% decreased participation rate turns into a 14% or a 21% decrease in total revenue? And that's a little scary. So a little bit of a silver lining there, but it could be the harbinger of some difficult times moving forward. So you got to think about, when does that participation rate turn into even more difficulties as far as revenue goes. Now, one of the things that, hey, it's funny, every single stat I keep coming with is like, and here's another bad news piece. So the other thing that they mentioned in this article is that the high watermark for funds being raised at these styles of events was in 2007. That's the high watermark.
12 years ago.
12 years ago was the highest level. So they've been gradually dropping off since then, but not quite at the same rate that we've seen in the last 2 years, but gradually dropping off, 1% one year, 2% another year. But yeah, the high water mark was 2007. And basically what they said is that it hasn't really recovered since the recession that we had around 2007, 2008. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and we want to learn a little bit why that is. Okay, now that we've shared the what, let's talk about the why. Well, actually, something else to consider is that for organizations, many of the groups that we speak with, their whole being, their entity is really wrapped around some specific events. And that can be tough. I don't want to name any walks and runs specifically. I'm not trying to call anybody out. That's not the intent of this conversation, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, everybody out there, they know that there are organizations that have major walks, major runs, and that's really what they're known for. The problem is that when that is your reality, and you're seeing major drop-offs in funds being raised and people not participating at the same level as they used to, it makes it very difficult if you haven't diversified. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But if you haven't diversified, in the end, how do you shift from being totally focused on this one area to have to shift to other areas to try to make up for the decline that you're seeing? Or how do you make it better?
It's like, not only is it coming up with a different way to get those revenues in, but it's almost like a bit of a rebranding when you're only known for that specific type of event. So yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a lot of work to do that. So yeah, good to have a diverse lineup of events for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that's that's something to be very cognizant of. When we talk about the diversification, I always go back to my my old gosh, I forget the name of the class back in high school, but it was like it was like a home ec class. And one of the things they were talking about in that home ec class, believe it or not, way back when I was going to school, Kaleigh, you guys nowadays you all probably don't have this type of class anymore, but they did talk about investing back then. And I still remember them talking about diversification and stocks and mutual funds and things of that nature. And really why diversification is so important, it's just like stocks and mutual funds, is that if you put all your money into one stock, if it goes up, it goes up. It's awesome. But if it goes down, you see nothing but decline too. So diversification means that you're putting your funds into a couple different stocks so that if you have a decline in one area, hopefully you have something else that's going up. So it helps to shield you. It helps to protect you from that, from the ups and downs. Now, of course, you could have all of your stocks go down, which is not good. But in the end, diversification is always better than putting all your eggs in one basket. So does that make sense to you, Kaleigh? I know that.
Yeah, I know. I don't know much about stocks. I definitely didn't learn about that in school for me. But the way you describe it, it paints a good picture, and it definitely helps understand. Because I mean, it's like if something's not going as planned, you're like, well, we can really make this thing work. This
Right.
thing is coming up. So, it's not just all the same thing.
Right. Now, granted, if you're really good at doing something, if you're really good and you've got really great information on a single stock and you can get in there and you can make it work and you're 100% confident that it will never go down, have at it. Put all your money into that one stock. But for most people, most investors or fundraisers, that's not the case. You can't always have 100% confidence in a single event. And you always have to keep your finger on the pulse of it so that if you are seeing something, be mindful very early on and make adjustments as needed. Another thing from the article is that they really wanted to delve into why they're seeing such a decline in participation. And I found this to be really interesting because I'd never really thought about this. And that was that back in the day, and Kaleigh, you're not going to remember these days.
All right, I get it. I'm a young
You're
puppy.
young, and I'm old. So, but back in the day, when people really supported a cause or an organization, really the best way for them to be around other like-minded individuals was to go to an event, right? Because you'd go to that run, that walk, and you'd have the camaraderie, you'd be around others, you'd have that fellowship, and it was a good feeling. And you were around all of these people that had the same passion. And that's good. It's good to feel that belonging.
Mm.
But the thing that they identified in this article that I hadn't thought about is that because of social media, that need to be around others is largely gone. Because due to social media, you can be around other like-minded individuals, albeit in a virtual way. You could be around them whenever you want. All you got to do is pull up their Facebook page and look at the chats and things, or their Instagram, or all the other things kids nowadays use. I don't know what else. What else is there,
TikTok.
Kaleigh? I mean, Facebook. Is it TikTok? Is that one of them?
TikTok's the big one now, yeah.
See, I don't even know what that is. I don't have a clue.
That makes sense though. I mean, I, I yeah, I just like I remember doing like walks in school and stuff like that. And that was the big thing, but I don't know if they even do those anymore.
At school, I think I see some out there at our
I
other
don't know,
schools,
maybe it's
but
because I'm up in Canada, but
yeah, we didn't even go there. But anyway,
Okay.
but yeah, so that's one thing, is that individuals they don't really need to have that sort of interaction to be around others that are like-minded, because they could do it anytime they want to via their phone. We have our heads buried in our phones way too much nowadays, and that's kind of what they're identifying. So I found that to be really interesting. Um,
And
Go ahead.
I feel like there's like got to be a part of that that's like, when you have an experience, you want to share it on social media. So, you know, with the trend of these walks and runs and traditional type fundraisers having a decline,
Mhm.
it's not as exciting to share that you've been to the 10th walk as it may be for other things to share. Like, people want to show off on social media is what I'm getting at. So I'm just kind of, some wheels are turning.
Well, that's kind of interesting, because we're actually going to get into some of that here a little bit later on.
Oh goodness.
One of the things I want to get into this quote from the article, and I'm just going to read it straight. And I apologize, but I found it to be really eye-opening. So in there, and I'm just going to read it straight here. So according to research by Christopher Olivola, an assistant professor of marketing at Carnegie Mellon University, very prestigious, people are more willing to donate money to those who will be suffering for a cause. In his studies, I don't like the term suffering, but yeah, I mean, so suffering for a cause. In his studies, people offered more to participants who would hold his or her hands in cold water for a minute, or who claimed an upcoming fundraising task would be quote unquote really tough, or who was biking an extreme distance instead of a short one. It's a phenomenon he calls fittingly the martyrdom effect. And it was exhibited perfectly by the Ice Bucket Challenge. So really what they're trying to connect here is that not only do you have more people participating nowadays in events that are considered a challenge, and I'm doing air quotes here like you can see me, Kaleigh.
Yeah.
But
I heard those air quotes.
You heard them. But so more people are signing up for that, and that might actually speak a little bit to what you were referencing there, that whole idea of when you're on social media, you want to be recognized, you want to be seen doing something different, and doing the same old might not get them that same amount of recognition. That doing something that is a challenge is going to get them more attention, more thumbs ups, more likes. It sounds so narcissistic, it really does, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, that
I
ice
mean,
bucket challenge was viral as it could have been. Like my grandmother did it.
you're kidding me.
No, I'm not. My
Oh my God.
grandmother did it, and
Meemaw did the ice bucket challenge. Are you
she
kidding me?
nominated me.
Oh,
So I
you
did it.
totally have
Yeah,
to share that video with me.
I
I
will.
totally have to see it. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. Yeah, it's a thing. And so, but the interesting thing here too, and I can see that part, but the interesting thing is that people that are donating to these individuals who are participating, what they found through their studies is that they gave more to individuals that were doing a challenge type of event rather than, the standard. So um, it's kind of interesting. And later on, if we have enough time, I don't know that we will, but by the way, we'll be sharing the article and the research studies that have been done. We'll be sharing it with everyone who attended here. We will send out some communication afterwards that'll have links to these things so you can see them for yourself. But there's a study later on where they, oh gosh, what did they do? I think what they did was is they compared individuals. I think they found that it was like at least a 70% increase in the amount of funds raised by people that were doing something that was considered a challenge versus doing the charity picnic, where they just went and sat down and ate hot dogs and hamburgers. So they did many different studies, and it was really interesting. You'll have to check out the links when we send them. But yeah, there's a lot of really neat stuff there. Um, so so there's really been a shift from donating to a cause to donating because of how a participant raises money. So it's the way in which they're raising the money where they're seeing an increase. For some, walking's according to this article, walking no longer is considered extreme enough. So it turns out that the donors are giving more based on if something is extreme or scary. So if that's the case, I think I should host a fundraising event when I go for my yearly physical, because that's scary.
But good one, Kev.
Yeah, I know. We have to get a sound effect for these things moving forward. We have to get that little rim shot sound effect.
Soundboard, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so that's what they're finding, is that there's a big difference. Now, there is one thing though in the article which I found kind of interesting, is that it's not all doom and gloom, all right, for runs and walks. They are finding that some of the traditional runs and walks that have converted sort of that standard 5K, what have you, regular walk, to doing something a little bit different with it, they've found that those have seen a bit of an increase. So for those listening here, you may want to consider, if you don't want to abandon completely your run or walk or other similar style of events, you may think about trying something different with it, adding a little twist. For example, some of the ones that I found, which I thought were really interesting. One of them is which I have to totally do this once I can run. Right now, I can only walk. Running is not in the cards for Kevin. But the Jingle Bell Run, where everybody, instead of just a regular walk or run, everyone's dressed up like little elves or Santas and that kind of thing. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Kaleigh, but I think it would be an absolute hoot to go see.
Yeah, no, I've heard of one that it was a lady who I was speaking with, and she's like, yeah, we're looking for something different, and we're thinking about doing a make fun of a walk or run almost, and it was like just around the block, and basically they were like racing around a parking lot, and along the way they'd get snacks, they could get a friend to push them a couple feet in a grocery cart, and that they, no matter what, like everyone got an award at the end. So it was just an extremely shortened, highly themed short walk around a block with just little activities along the way, which I thought was kind of funny.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Another one that I found when I was looking it up was walk a mile in her shoes, which was really a walk where men signed up and they were doing walks. They were doing this mile walk, but they had to wear high heels.
Man, they could do it with big men boots as well. Those things are heavy.
Well, yes, but but yeah, so they were wearing high heels, which I thought was kind of interesting, and so you had a lot of people signing up to do that. Um, there was also another one, Cupid's charity, I think. I think we both have seen this one,
Mm.
where they go out and do the run in their undies. They're all tasteful, there's nothing bad, but
Not only in their undies, but their undies when it's cold out.
it's February. Yeah, they do it around Valentine's Day across the nation. So yeah, it's February, and in many parts of the country, that's a little chilly. So
Mm.
anyhow, so just a couple examples of sort of alternative walking style of events that we've seen.
It kind of has the novelty bit to it, so that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So really, the martyrdom effect is really all about individuals are looking for a challenge. That's why they're signing up to do things nowadays. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that people tend to value something that they have to work harder for. I mean, if you think about it, when you've been when you've worked really hard for something and you get it, that's a cherished thing, whatever it is, it's cherished. But if something's just given to you, eh, it's nice, but maybe it's not quite as cherished. So the challenge concept is definitely something that's relatively new. So finding something that is a challenge is always good, it seems like. But taking maybe something that isn't a challenge and putting a new twist on it to where it can be a little bit more fun or a little bit more challenging could also be an answer to your situation. Um, so, any Jamie, have we received any questions at all?
No questions have come in, but now is a great opportunity if anybody has any to ask some.
Yeah, feel free. Feel free. Um, some of the Kaleigh, some of the
Yeah.
challenge type events that we've seen. Of course, Over the Edge is a challenge style event, but some other ones, everybody here knows about Over the Edge. We don't have to get into that.
Mm.
But some of the other ones that we've seen out there, which have been pretty popular, the Polar Plunge comes to mind because that would be a big challenge for me.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I could. I don't
That
know.
that would be very tough. I mean, I've been on the side of extremely tall buildings. That doesn't faze me. But you asked me to dip my toe into some freezing cold water on a frozen lake, I might have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But that's been very popular. Gosh, we've
There's
seen. Go
there's
ahead.
some like there's some like adventure type ones out there too. They're a little more, for the traveler bug or the people who love to travel, but there's some
Yeah,
like, long treks and like hikes that you can do and um
yeah.
even some really
Like
intense.
climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I think, is a big one that we
Yeah.
hear a lot of.
Yeah, that one. And I think someone here on our team actually they did like a month long cycling program that I thought was kind of a unique touch, because it's a lot of people have those like in-home bikes. And it's like you have to bike X amount of
Mm.
distance, that kind of thing.
Oh
That's
yeah,
pretty
the
interesting.
virtual events.
Yeah,
Yeah.
virtual events.
Yep.
Kind of
That's
different.
that's kind of a new thing now too, which is really interesting. The nice thing about the virtual events is that you're not limited to just a geographical area. That people
Yeah.
can support you really from all over the world. I mean, really. So if you're trying to get your supporters to really share the information and get it out there, people could sign up wherever they happen to be, and you don't have to worry about stepping on any sort of territorial toes. Boy, talk about alliteration, territorial toes. But um, but yeah, I mean, so for a lot of nonprofits, like I'm just going to bring one up here, just an example, like United Way. There's a United Way in almost every county, and
Yeah.
so you can't really be reaching out and do another county. That's not your territory. But if you're just put it out there in general, and people can do that virtual event, and it's a challenge. Yeah, the virtual events are really interesting. It's a neat way to approach. Um,
And
so go ahead.
I feel like it kind of goes along with unfortunately, the way that humanity now is, even where we're talking about social media and being on their phones and all that stuff, sometimes getting out of the house is the hard part. So having something that's virtual kind of fits just about anyone's, you know, social preference, I guess.
For
You know,
sure.
if you're not comfortable in crowded spaces, like, you know, that's a good way to kind of participate in something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so I think that about does it for our inaugural little broadcast here of the Trend Raising Trio. We will be talking about all kinds of interesting subjects coming up. They'll be focused on trends and best practices. We'll probably have some really cool surveys and things coming up here in the near future. But we definitely encourage you to join us for our next one. Share it. We'll probably be putting it out there in podcast form here in the near future. This was just a first go at it, and by no means are we professionals at doing this sort of thing. We know what we're talking about when it comes to fundraising, so we just thought we'd have a lot of fun and share this and see what people thought of the format, see if they found it intriguing. So definitely respond to the questions that we might send you, to everyone that's here.
And I'd like to
But
share just kind of some of the subjects that we're going to look at
oh
covering
yeah,
in our series.
perfect.
So we're going to have an episode about peer-to-peer fundraising. Peer-to-peer fundraising is great. There's lots of different ways to do it. There's lots of different best practices, and we've learned a lot of this over the years of helping raise over 100 million for nonprofits through our peer-to-peer fundraiser. But again, it's going to be about peer-to-peer fundraising in general. We'll also talk about emotional event momentum. We'll have a conversation about sponsors. We'll talk about media engagement, volunteers and keeping them engaged, just word of mouth, social media,
Oh,
engaging your
don't forget my favorite,
lots.
the five deadly sins of fundraising.
Oh yes, that is your. I was letting you just. I was like, he's going to bring it up, but we have a wide range of topics that we're going to be covering. So, you know, the real podcast, I believe, will be fully launching for 2020. December is going to be busy. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, we're not gonna be putting anything out in in December, but yeah, look for us coming back again with this format in January. And as Kaleigh mentioned, got a lot of cool subjects to talk about. And in the meantime, if you have any ideas or any concepts you'd like us to delve into, please feel free to reach out to us. Like I said, you will get an email with our contact information, and be more than happy to share what we can on those subjects.
And we're going to try to get some special guests in as well. So yeah, special
For sure.
guests. That'll be great.
For sure. Yeah, we've got a lot of great ones that we've spoken to throughout the years. So
Oh yeah.
looking forward to getting them in here as well. So, well, excellent. Well, Kaleigh, thank you very much. This was an absolute hoot. Jamie, thanks for filling in on a moment's notice. We really appreciate it. Wish we could have kept you a little bit busier, but that's okay. Just means that we were covering the subject thoroughly.
Exactly.
Perfect. All right, everybody. Thanks for your time, and we look forward to talking with you again.
Thanks for joining the Trend Raising Trio.
Bye-bye.
That's right. Bye-bye.